him seeing his son. You threatened to take his parental rights away, so I'm going to be here so that he can at least have some visitation rights to him.
You don't have any reason to believe that Raul has used, or Saul, I'm sorry, has used drugs since he's been out of prison, do you?
Well, I haven't been around him, so I can't sit here and say if he is or not.
Okay, well, and we hope he wasn't using anything while he was in prison. Do you know how long he was in prison?
Close to 4 years.
Okay, and he's been out now going on a year, is that correct?
I believe he was out in August or July.
Okay.
So about a
Yeah,
year.
10 months, 9 or 10 months. And so, and you know, he's been working that whole time. He's been sending you child support, right?
Correct.
Okay. And he works for the family business, which is his mother and sister, I think. Is that correct?
I thought he was working at another company, but I'm not sure what he does.
You may be right. We'll see. Okay. But as far as you know, he's been at the same job since he got out of prison. Is that correct?
I can't answer that because I really don't communicate with him in reference to what he does for work, or I can't tell you.
You're not implying to the court that he didn't want to see his son more than twice, did you? You know he wants to see Robson, right?
Correct.
Okay. And obviously you felt comfortable enough, at least for that weekend, for him to have the child there in the area, but without any other supervision, correct?
Correct.
So, you know, that's at least a step in the right direction, I guess, from our perspective. And the child's 9 years old. He's certainly old enough to tell you or anyone else if there's something going on that's not appropriate during any period of possession by anybody, correct?
Correct.
And you know he's got his grandmother, my client's mother, and aunts that live in San Antonio, as well as his father. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is Robson in good health?
He is.
He doesn't need any special treatments or anything like that, medically speaking, does he?
No.
And is it true that my client has been sending you voluntarily, not court ordered, $150 per week since he's gone to work and since he got out of prison?
That's correct.
No further questions for this witness.
Okay. Ms. Ratliff, any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Cardenas, do you have any testimony that you would like to share?
Not at this time.
Okay. Next witness.
They call Saul Chacon.
Mr. Chacon, will you raise? Have I already sworn you in? I think I go ahead. I swore in Ms. Cardenas. Usually I swear both of them in at the time, but I think I better swear you in. Mr. Chacon, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you can lower your hand. You may proceed. Ms. Ratliff.
Sir, would you please state your name?
Saul Chacon.
Okay, you're the father of Robson, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And have you been incarcerated?
Yes, in the past. I just got out.
Okay, from when to when were you incarcerated?
I believe May of 2019 to 2023,
Okay.
or May of 2023.
Okay. And for what were you incarcerated?
Assault on a public servant and
Okay.
burglary of a habitation with intent, commit a felony, and obstruction.
Prior to that, were you incarcerated for any time at all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, from when to when?
It's been so long I don't even remember.
Okay, do you remember for what?
Assault on a public servant was
Okay.
the first time. Yes, ma'am.
You've had a past history of drug use, is that correct?
Correct.
What kind of drugs did you use in the past?
Cocaine, alcohol.
Okay. And heard Ms. Cardenas testify that in the past you would pass your drug test because you took some herbal stuff to clean it out of your system. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And since you've been out in the past year, have you taken drug tests as part of your parole?
Yes, ma'am. Every
Okay,
time every time I would report to my parole officer, I had to take a drug test.
Okay. And did you
I was on
pass them
parole
all?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know when they are ahead of time?
No.
Okay.
I mean, they don't, like the first 7 times when you come out of prison, they're gonna give you 7 straight drug tests. And after that, they just give them to you randomly.
Okay. Do you drink or smoke now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And how far does your father live from you?
How far does he live right now from me?
Yeah.
About 3-hour drive.
Okay. Do you have any family there living with you there in San Antonio?
Yes, ma'am.
Who lives there in San Antonio?
My 2 sisters and my mom.
Would they be willing to do any supervising if the court ordered supervised visitation?
Yes, ma'am.
Do they have a relationship with your son?
They haven't been able to see him.
Okay.
She won't let them see him.
They know who he is, and do you think that he knows who they are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I try to sneak in a little visit through Zoom every now and then.
Okay. Would your father be able to do any supervising since he lives 3 hours away?
He would, but he doesn't like to travel. I try to get him to go up there with me the second time, and that first trip was just long for him. So,
How
but
is your
he's
father?
he's willing to supervise once a year, I guess.
Okay. How old is your father?
He's 76, I think, in 1953. He was born in 53.
Okay. And you're asking the court to grant you, if not immediately, eventually unsupervised visits, correct?
Can you repeat that?
You're asking the court to grant you unsupervised visits with your son, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any objection to the court ordering a few supervised visits at the beginning?
No, ma'am. In the beginning, no, ma'am.
Okay. And what's your work schedule?
I work Sunday through Friday.
Okay. So you've got
7
weekends off.
to 3:30. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Every now and then they'll have us work weekends.
Okay. And you have a valid driver's license?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you live more than 150 miles away from Frisco, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else you want to tell the court regarding these visitation issues I haven't asked you?
I can't think of anything. I just trying to reach something, like to see my boy.
Questions? Is it my turn?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, let's give the state the name of your employer, and if you know it, the address and phone number.
It's Axis Industries.
Spell that.
Axis is AXIS Industries.
Are they officed out of San Antonio?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea what their address is or phone number?
Not on hand.
Okay. All right. And what are you doing for them?
I sandblast for them.
How long have you been working for them?
Close to a year now.
Yeah. Since you got out, basically.
Yes, sir.
All right. I don't know why I thought you were working for your mom and sisters, but obviously I was wrong. Okay. Your mother and at least one of your sisters operate a business down there. Is that correct? And what is that business?
It's home health.
Santana Home Health?
Santana Primary Home Care. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. You're kind of breaking up on me a little bit. All right. And so, do you see them on a regular basis?
I do.
And they want to see your son too. Is that right?
Correct.
And if your son's there visiting you, are they going to be seeing your child on a regular basis?
Yes.
Are both your sisters and your mother willing to be supervisors if the court deemed that to be appropriate?
Yes.
What's your mother's name?
Rebecca Santana.
What's both of your sisters' names?
Erica Baldry and Crystal Garcia.
Okay. They're all adults, correct?
Correct.
Are they all working adults? They have jobs?
Yes, sir.
They're all interested in spending time with and seeing your son Robson. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Now, the mother of the child's got a closer relationship with your father. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Well, I mean, she spent a lot of time here with my other family too.
Okay. But since I guess y'all split up, she's been closer to your father. Is that fair to say or not?
Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah, they visit once a year.
Once a year. Okay. All right. Well, apparently she's in contact with him more than your mother. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
So when you went to visit, the first time you took your father with you, and did Robson spend the night with y'all?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second time, this was just this last May or March? Was it March? Yeah, March. Toward the end of March of this year, you went up without anyone else and had him for the weekend, spent one night at the hotel with you. Is that correct?
Correct. 2 nights. I think he
2
stayed with me.
nights.
He stayed with me Saturday, Sunday, and then I left Monday.
Okay, so 2 nights. And you heard the mother say, well, she was kind of directing what was going on, staying in communication. You don't have a problem with her being in communication with Robson if you've got him for visits, wherever it may be, do you?
No, sir.
And if for some reason Robson wasn't happy being with you for your visit, let's just say, for example, you've got him for a weekend, and Saturday he says he wants to go home, are you going to have a problem with letting him go home?
Not at all.
Are you intending for your family members to be actively involved during your visits, if you get to do the visits in the San Antonio area where you live?
Yes, I wanted him to. I mean, I want him to meet spend time with his family on this side.
Okay. Now, you were in prison and you said you had problems with cocaine and alcohol. Did you also use some other drugs along the way?
Yes, sir.
And I guess sounds like you maybe got belligerent sometimes when you were under the influence of something. These occasions that you got arrested for assaulting a public servant, were you under the influence of anything?
Yes, sir.
And during the 4 years you were in prison, did you use any kind of controlled substances?
No, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, sir, I did not. While I was in prison, no.
Right. I think that mic doesn't pick up the very start when you start talking, so sometimes I'm missing the answers. And then since you've been out, you've stayed away from any controlled substances. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct.
So you've been clean, so to speak, for at least 5 years now. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you having any problems staying clean now that you're out?
No, sir.
Did you learn anything about your stint in prison? You don't want to go back?
Yes, I learned a lot. Yes, sir.
You missed a lot while you were gone in prison.
Yes,
like
sir.
your son growing up. You'd like to make up for some lost time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you would like to have standard visitation. We talked about whether you would elect the 1 weekend per month as opposed to the weekends following the first, third, and fifth Friday. And I think you indicated the 1 weekend a month would be fine and probably makes more sense as far as the child not having to travel so much. Correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
So is that what you would elect as long as you all live over 100 miles apart, the 1 weekend per month plus the standard holidays?
Yes, sir.
You need to answer. Okay. And then summer is more problematic because over 100 miles, you typically would have 42 days in the summer. Are you willing to agree, like for example, this summer to doing a couple of weeks, 1 week periods with Robson, like maybe one in July, one in August, along with your 1 weekend per month, and then don't start the extended summers until next summer. Are you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Did I lose my? Okay, there you go.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, if the court wanted your visitation to be set up, for example, where, either an aunt or grandmother or grandfather would have at least some communication or access to the child on any day during your summer or weekend visitations for that matter, that's fine with you. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you think that your mother or your sisters would tolerate you having Robson and being drunk or on the influence of any kind of drugs if they knew about it?
No.
Okay. What's your mother's name?
Rebecca Santana.
Okay. How old is she?
71. She doesn't discuss her age. She doesn't.
Well, that's not that unusual. Okay. And you said your work hours were 7 to 3:30. Is that right?
7 a.m. to 3:30. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, let's just say for the example, if you had Robson for a weekend or during the summer, let's say for a week, where would he be during the work days, or would you take that week off?
No, he would stay with my mom or my sister, my older sister.
Okay, all right. Is there any reason that you're aware of why either one of them wouldn't be an appropriate person to have possession of your child while you're at work during the workday?
No, sir.
Would they love the opportunity to keep Robson for several hours at a time?
Yes, sir, they would. They haven't seen him. They don't
Okay.
see him much, and they want to see him.
And if I covered this, I apologize, but you voluntarily started paying child support when you went to work, correct?
Correct.
And you paid $150 a week every week since you've been out, since you started, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we looked into your insurance on the child. It's going to be more expensive than what the mother has. So that's one of the reasons you agreed to her carrying the insurance on the child, and that cost is reasonable by definition of the family code. You're just fine with that, correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
I will pass the witness.
No further questions from the state.
Ms. Cardenas, do you have questions of Mr. Chacon?
I do.
Okay. You may proceed.
My only concern with,
Okay, they have to be in the form of a question. So you'll
Okay.
get opportunity if you want to state something, as a conclusion. But right now, do you have questions about, or to Mr. Chacon about what he just testified to?
yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chacon, have you been physically abusive towards your sisters and mom?
No.
Did you have an incident at the river with kids around where you got into it with your brother-in-law, Mr. Garcia, and the police were called out?
We got into an argument. But that was as far as it went.
Did you go to jail that night?
I did. I wasn't charged. I was impaired, I guess. That's why I went to jail.
Mr. Chacon, is it true that you choked your mother with a t-shirt around her neck in our front yard when we lived together in San Antonio?
No, I don't recall that.
Were you under the influence that night
What night?
that you choked your mother with your t-shirt?
I don't remember choking her. She would have called the cops and I would have been charged if I'd have choked her, but I don't recall that.
The cops were called. She told them to go away.
Ms.
Well,
Cardenas, sustain. Ask your next question, Ms. Cardenas.
I mean, the only assault charges that I have were I went to jail for them. Any other assaults, they would have them on file, and I would have went to jail. But I paid my debt to society, and I've learned a lot. And, my assaults are on file; they're on paper. Any other assaults? It's just I don't remember. I don't remember that.
Anything else, Ms. Cardenas?
No more questions.
Okay. Ms. Ratliff or Mr. Cotton?
If you'd like to recall Miss Cardenas.
Okay.
Can we finish with Mr. Chacon? I've got.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
the
may
question.
redirect,
Okay.
Mr. Cotton.
All right, thank you. When was this incident down at the river?
What?
How many
Which?
years ago? Well, where you got in an argument?
Oh, that was. I don't remember the exact date, but it was 4 years. I think four years ago.
Well, it had to be more than that, or you would be in prison while that was happening.
Sure.
Was it before you went to prison?
It was before I went to prison.
So probably 5 or more years. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever been abusive to your son?
No, sir.
Did you answer me? I couldn't hear you.
No, sir, I have not.
No further questions.
Ms. Cardenas, any questions?
No questions.
Ms. Ratliff?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Any other witnesses? You're going to
Same.
recall Ms. Cardenas?
Yes, I would like to call Miss Cardenas briefly, Your Honor.
Okay. You're still under oath, Ms. Cardenas. You may proceed, Ms. Ratliff.
Ma'am, you indicated earlier through your testimony that you would prefer that Mr. Chacon's father do any supervising, correct?
Correct.
And what issues do you have with the mother and the sisters doing any supervising?
My only concern with that is the safety of my child. If they're not able to protect or defend themselves from the father, how do I know they're going to be able to protect and defend my child? My child is around.
State passes the witness.
Okay. I don't have any further questions for this witness, Judge.
Okay. Ms. Ratliff?
State has no further witnesses. The state rests.
Mr. Cotton?
Let me call, I guess the aunt. You got one of your sisters there? Which one?
Yes, sir. Erica?
Okay, is Erica, I'll call Erica to testify. What's her last name?
Baldry?
Is she where you
Can you put her
her?
on the camera, Mr. Chacon?
Yes.
Ms. Baldry, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am. I
Okay,
do.
you can lower your hand. You may proceed, Mr. Cotton.
State your full name, please.
Erica Baldry.
Where do you live?
I live in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, what's your relationship to Saul?
He's my brother. He's my younger brother.
Yeah. And where are you working?
I work at Santana Primary Home Care.
Is that a family-owned business?
Yes, sir, it is.
Your mother, a owner or part owner of that business?
My mother owns the business. My sister and I run it.
Okay. All right. So y'all see each other daily. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And obviously you're anxious to see Robson, spend some time with him. Is that correct?
That is, yes, sir. Very correct.
Is there any reason that you can think of why you, your mother, or your sister wouldn't have access to and be around Robson during visits that his father would exercise in San Antonio?
Not at all.
Would you anticipate you would actually be spending quite a bit of time with him?
Absolutely. I have younger children his age.
Okay. And are you also, could you represent to the court that if the court deemed it appropriate for a period of time that you or your mother or your sister, for that matter, would be willing to supervise or at least, check on Robson on a regular basis, supervise if necessary, whatever the court would require? Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Everybody wants Robson and his dad to have a good relationship. And at this point, do you think that Saul's doing everything he can to be a better person and to stay out of trouble and to be productive?
Yes, sir. He has.
You think part of that motivation is that he wants to be a good father to his son at this point?
Absolutely. Yes.
Would you have any concerns for Robson's safety or emotional wellness or what have you, if your brother were allowed to take his son back to San Antonio for a weekend, for example?
Not at all.
Sal's indicated that if he has to work during like a summer, he had a week in the summer or whatever, he had to work, that you or your sister or your mom would be providing, I guess, care for Robson during the time that Saul's at work. Is that something that's doable?
It's absolutely doable.
You think it would be in Robson's best interest to be able to spend time with his dad and his dad's side of the family?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Okay, Ms. Ratliff, any questions?
Stan has no questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Cardenas, do you have any questions of Ms. Baldry?
I do.
Okay, you may proceed.
Ms. Baldry, you state you have 2 children, correct?
Correct.
Would you let your children be alone with Mr. Chacon for longer
Today?
than
Yes.
you would?
Today? Yes.
Have they ever spent time with Mr. Chacon alone without your supervision?
I haven't seen my brother very long. He's only been out for a year. And he works different hours than I work. I work from home and I juggle a full-time job plus my 2 children. But he has come over to the house.
So question is, and since he's been released, has he spent time alone with your children since he's been released?
And no one's spent time alone with my children. I'm always with my kids. I'm at work at home. That's why I work from home, so I can spend the time with my kids.
Would you let your children be alone with Mr. Chacon
Yes.
for more than a day?
Yes. If I know where they're at, if I know where they're going, if I know what they're going to do, and if I have access just like you want access, yes, I would.
You wouldn't have concern for their safety or their well-being?
As long as I have communication like you're requesting, I would not have any concern.
Would you withhold any information from me?
If it puts Robson in danger, if it's something that's not going to be good for Robson, no, I wouldn't.
So the information with your mother being choked by Mr. Chacon, that information is not being disclosed by anyone, by Mr.
It was not,
Chacon?
I don't know what night it was. I was not there. And we went through this in court. The same thing. I did not witness it. I didn't know anything about it. I don't know if it even happened. I don't know where it was. I don't know anything. So we're kind of revisiting the same thing over and over again.
Right. I feel like this information is important to know because it
Okay.
also means that my child is going to be in the middle of a situation if it were to happen, but it's being thrown under the rug. So that way that information is not disclosed to the court.
But you've disclosed it.
Correct, I have, but we're going to just, everyone's pretending it didn't happen. But everyone was clearly upset when it did happen. So
I didn't witness anything.
where I'm
If
coming
you're
from,
asking me if I witnessed it, I did not witness it.
I did.
So I can't say neither here nor there.
I witnessed it.
Okay,
But you live in San Antonio with Mr. Chacon, correct?
I do now, yes.
How long have you lived in San Antonio?
I've been in San Antonio for a long time, but Saul's only been here for about a year.
Where was Mr. Chacon before he lived there?
Well, I mean, as we discussed, he was incarcerated in Vernon.
Prior to him being incarcerated, where did he live?
I'm not really sure. I lived in Las Vegas prior to me being in San Antonio.
No, prior to
He was
him
here.
going to incarceration in 2019,
He
you
was
lived in
here.
San Antonio, correct?
Yeah, he was here. I was here.
Was Mr. Chacon living in San Antonio or was he living in Quemado with his dad?
To be honest with you, I'm not really sure. He was going back and forth as far as I know. But I know he was here and he was there. I have there's a 13-year age gap between me and my siblings. I lived a very separate life from the second I was 17 years old. And I have been trying to mend that bridge since I've been back. And part of that bridge is my brother and his son, which is, the bridge is not well mended there when it comes to his son, because we haven't been allowed to see him.
So, yeah, would you say you're close with your
Close to
brother?
whom?
Do you have a close relationship with Mr. Chacon?
I have a close relationship with him, but we're not inseparable. We don't do everything together. I don't do everything with my sister either, but we are close and we're there for one another when it comes right down to it.
So would you say you would know where your brother is staying at if he wasn't in San Antonio?
That's not necessarily true. He's an adult. It doesn't tell me everything.
So if my child were to be with Mr. Chacon, how would you get in contact with him to know where they're at?
Well, if your child was with Saul, with Mr. Chacon, as you say, and you're wanting supervised visits, then I would be there with him. Isn't that what we're discussing, supervised visits?
These are just questions that I'm
Okay.
asking.
Okay,
We
That's how I would
understand
know.
the purpose
That'd
of
be
this Zoom meeting. It's to get some sort of visitation in place.
okay.
I just want to get clarification from you in regards to your relationship with your brother. And so that way everyone knows that your relationship with your brother isn't that close.
No, but my relationship when it comes to this situation brings us extremely close because
Why to
I
this
want to
situation?
have
And not any other
Him-
situation.
him seeing his son. He threatened to take his parental rights away, so I'm going to be here so that he can at least have some visitation rights to him. And if I have to supervise them so that everyone is comfortable, including you, then I'm willing to do that. And I want to do that because I want to see him. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old who know who Robson is. They know each other. Our kids are young, including Robson, but they're very well aware of each other.
They are.
And I'd like to bridge that gap somehow. Again, if being part of the supervisory visits helps bridge that gap, I'm willing to be there for him.
You
For
do
all of them.
understand that as a mother where I'm coming from when it comes to
absolutely
the
do.
safety of my child.
I absolutely do, which is why I'm here.
So just like you wouldn't put your children in a situation to put them in a dangerous situation where they can't fend for themselves, you understand where I'm coming from with Robson.
I understand
correct?
where your concern is coming from, which is why I'm here.
Okay. No more questions.
I've got a
Mr.
couple of
Cotton?
follow-up.
Okay.
Angela, do you have some?
I do not, I do not.
Okay, all right. So I think probably we could all agree that if Mr. Chacon were to start using drugs or getting intoxicated or whatever, that we would not want him around Robson. Fair to say?
That's correct.
Did you answer me? I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that is correct.
I think it's that microphone thing again. Okay. And you don't want any harm to come to Robson, do you?
Absolutely not.
Based upon what you've seen in the last year out of your brother, as you sit here today, do you have concerns for Robson to go spend a weekend or a week with his dad?
Not at all.
If those concerns change because you thought he was under the influence or started using again or whatever, after 5 years being sober, Would you hesitate to take whatever actions necessary to be protected for Robson?
Not at all.
No further questions.
Okay, Ms. Cardenas, do you have any other last questions of Ms. Baldry? Can you
No,
vocalize it?
no
since we're-
questions, no further
Okay.
questions.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Baldry. If you could put Mr. Chacon back on.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Cotton?
No, Your Honor, I believe we've covered it.
All right. The state is rested. Do you also rest?
We do.
Ms. Cardenas, do you have any other testimony that you would like to provide, or do you also rest?
I rest.
All right. Close, Ms. Ratliff.
The state would request that the court approve the agreements of the parties regarding current child support, medical support, dental support, and retroactive support, and that the court make a determination as to the proper conservatorship and possession and access orders as to Mr. Chacon. The court determine whether there should be a non-disclosure finding of Ms. Cardenas's information. And the state would request that Mr. Chacon be ordered to pay court costs as billed by the Will Barker County District Clerk no later than a year from today.
Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Judge. I think the testimony that we've heard today, it pretty much indicates that Mr. Chacon's past obviously caused some concerns and does. And there was a time where certainly you wouldn't say, well, here, take your son for the week or for the weekend or whatever. But the evidence that is more recent in nature is that, of course, he was in prison for about 4 years, but then he's been out going on 10 months, been working, been paying child support, been staying out of trouble, been staying clean by all accounts, had random drug testing through his parole, and apparently passed all those with flying colors. So he certainly appears to be on the right track, doing the right things, and wants to have a relationship, an improved relationship with his son, Robson, which of course the family members all want. They all want to be able to spend time with Robson. Even the mother apparently was not opposed to him having a relationship with his son and felt comfortable enough for him to have the child for 2 nights and 2 days during the last visit. So, you know, at some point, you know, you got to see what's going on and kind of make a decision based upon that, not what happened back in 2013 or 14. And I think today my client presents himself well and is doing everything we would want him to be doing to be a good father and to be a good citizen. So substance abuse is a problem because it can reoccur. We know that. So I think we have family members that live in San Antonio and around my client and where his son would be visiting that would be protective. You know, some kind of random drug testing could be appropriate, I guess, for a period of time. You know, it looks like he's staying clean and doing what he needs to do. And we just want him to be able to have a normal relationship with his son. If the longer periods of possession, like the 42 days in the summer, seem a bit much at this point, then, you know, putting that off until next year and doing something shorter this year might be appropriate, might help alleviate some of the worries that the mother has. You know, mom's being protective, and that's certainly applaudable and understandable. But, you know, at some point, staying clean has to account for something. And, you know, I think he's shown the ability to do that and to stay gainfully employed and to pay child support and provide for his child. So I don't see a reason to deviate from the standard possession, or at least not long term. If the court feels it appropriate to kind of ease into it, then so be it. But I don't think any harm's going to come to this child by my client having a weekend every month and taking him to San Antonio to spend time with family and have a good weekend. So we'd ask the court to order standard visitation with whatever modifications the court deems to be appropriate.
Okay, Ms. Cardenas, are you requesting, this is your opportunity to advise what you're requesting.
Okay. So basically the outlining objective for this is child support visitation rights and ensuring that there's a safe environment for Robson, along with establishing supervised visitation to prioritize the well-being of Robson in the Dallas area to make sure that I'm close by if needed. He hasn't been around anyone other than my family and myself. So placing him and with his father, or, you know, the father's side of the family, that he doesn't know very well. How to, you know, I want him to be able to feel secure and safe where he can go to. So that's my main concern with the visitation. I encourage Mr. Chacon to rehabilitate himself, progress in society, personal growth. I'm for that. But those have to be for his well-being, for his reasons, and of course for Robson as well. The principle is the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior, which is frequently considered in these types of proceedings. Understandable to believe in second chances. Forgiveness and rehabilitation are important aspects. However, you're repeatedly demonstrating lack of improvement or accountability despite multiple opportunities for rehab and support. It may deem necessary for us to reassess the situation to prioritize Robson's safety and his well-being. The multiple denials of Mr. Chacon's parole also shows the careful decisions made in order to have him out supervised release. If they didn't deem him safe to be out in society, why should he have the standard possession of a child? So my concern is just my son's well-being, his education, extracurricular activities, his health, making sure that his basic needs are met. You know, his father being rehabilitated, that shouldn't be put onto my son. I feel that supervised visits at this time would be a great start in order to establish that relationship between the father and the child, along with drug testing. That is it.
Okay. Okay, I will approve the agreements that were made by the parties regarding the health insurance, the current child support, and the retroactive child support judgment of 0. I will order that Ms. Cardenas is the sole managing conservator of the child with the exclusive right to determine the primary residence of the child without regard to geographic location. I will name Mr. Chacon a possessory conservator of the child. I will grant Ms. Cardenas a request for non-disclosure except for her contact phone number to facilitate possession and access. I'm going to order Thursday, and it won't be a possession, but at this time, Thursday visitation, either electronic or by video, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. If that day does not work, the two of you would have to agree to change it. But we're going to go ahead and start those now so that at least Mr. Chacon will have weekly contact with his child. I respect and understand Ms. Cardenas's request for supervised visits and her just parenting to make sure that the child is safe. However, Mr. Chacon did exercise unsupervised visits recently. I'm going to order, and it won't be a weekend, but this is what we're going to start with. At 10 a.m. on Saturday to 6 or till 5 p.m. on Sunday, one weekend, or that one day, Saturday, Sunday, one day, one night overnight visit, one time a month of Mr. Chacon's choosing. He must contact Ms. Cardenas the Monday prior to him wanting, or before, so 5 days notice at least to Ms. Cardenas to advise what day he's requesting or to pick up the child for the one night overnight. No, I will make an injunction as to alcohol and any intoxicating substances. None of those are to be used by Mr. Chacon 12 hours prior to or during any possession and access. And so that's not just for those one nights, but ongoing. Those one nights will continue for 7 visits. And what my goal is to get you through the end of this year for at least one night overnight, one time a month, through the end of the year, but they have to be consecutive. That means if you don't have 7 months of one night overnights, you're going to stay there until you have 7 consecutive months. I will order that Ms. Cardenas can request drug testing And Mr. Chacon, you would have to pay for that at your expense to provide her a negative drug test prior to picking up the child that Saturday. After those 7 visits are concluded and 7 visits have been made consecutively, it will go to a standard possession order, which is as long as you live that far apart, it's still going to be one weekend of the month, but you'll have summer and all of the holidays included. Let me just make sure I have everything. Okay. Court costs will be assessed against Mr. Chacon to be paid 1 year from today's date. And any party that wants a new hearing on any of the issues that I've ruled on today can do so by filing a trial de novo with the Bull Burger District Clerk's Office within the next 3 days. It must be in writing. It must specify the portion or portions of my ruling in which a new hearing is being requested, and notice must go out to all of the parties. Does that address all of the issues, and are there any clarifications that are needed before we close out the hearing?
Judge, do you want me to include all these standard possession orders for all distances in case anybody moves, or do you just want me to put the one for more than 100 miles? I mean, more than 150 miles or 100 miles.
I think include them all. It sounds
Okay.
like Ms. Cardenas is kind of fluid with her employment, so I don't want it limited by the mileage.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Does Ms. Cardenas, I don't know if we have her email. Is she willing to share her email with us? So if we need to send her something, we can send it to her email.
That's
Ms.
fine.
Cardenas, do you have any objection over providing your email address?
No.
Okay, so that can also be included in the order, the email as well for both parties, as well as phone numbers.
I just want to clarify the times. You said 10 a.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. through 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Sunday.
through 5 p.m. Sunday. Okay.
Is the video every Thursday?
Yes.
And Mr. Chacon has Robson's phone number, so he's been able to communicate with him directly. That shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. I also want to put an injunction or just a directive in there that Mr. Chacon is to make sure that Robson or Mr. Chacon maintains communication with Ms. Cardenas throughout the visitation. No ignoring phone calls, ignoring text. I'm not asking Ms. Cardenas you to hammer them or, send a text message every 15 minutes. But if you've been doing that in the past, I would want that to continue. Just the ability to do check-ins while the child is with Mr. Chacon, just like he can do check-ins with you while the child is with you. Okay.
And one more question on the drug test. Is that going to be urine, hair follicle?
I will have it be a hair follicle test.
Okay.
And that's upon your request.
So I would just notify Mr. Chacon that I'm requesting a drug test?
Yes, prior to possession and access.
That will be an expense borne by Mr. Chacon, regardless of the result.
Yes. Any other clarifications?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. That concludes the hearing. Thank you for being here. And you're free to disconnect from the Zoom meeting.